Imagine diving headfirst from a tower nearly 100 feet tall. Nothing but two jungle vines tied to your ankles. No harness, no safety inspection. Just vines, timing, and trust. Sounds insane, right? People on this one Pacific island have been doing exactly that for centuries, long before anyone called it bungee jumping. And somehow, that's still not the strangest thing about this place. There's an active volcano here. You can walk right up to the edge of. There's a religion built around a World War II American soldier who might not have even existed. And for 74 years, two entirely different countries ran at the same time. Two currencies, two police forces, two prisons, because neither one would let the other be in charge. Welcome to Vanuatu. Vanuatu is a chain of roughly 80 islands, scattered across the South Pacific, east of Australia. Most Americans couldn't find it on a map. That's not an accident. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why. It spent most of its modern history being governed by two European powers who couldn't agree on anything, except that neither one wanted to leave. What makes this even stranger? Vanuatu has the highest density of indigenous languages of any country on Earth. More than 100 indigenous languages in a country with fewer than 350,000 people. That sounds impossible. So, how did one tiny country end up with over 100 languages? We'll get there. It goes back thousands of years, and it's tangled up with everything else that happened here. It's also consistently ranked among the most disaster-prone countries on Earth by major global risk assessments. Volcanoes, cyclones, earthquakes, tsunamis, all stacked on top of each other. And somehow, this is also the place that inspired one of the world's most popular adventure sports, by accident, centuries before anyone gave it a name. On Pentecost Island, there's a ritual called Naghol land diving. Every year, tied to the yam harvest, men and boys climb a wooden tower built into a steep hillside, sometimes 80 to 100 feet high, vines tied around their ankles. Then they dive, head first, toward the ground. Picture this. The vines are cut to a precise length beforehand, calculated by eye and generations of experience. So the diver's shoulders just barely brush the earth before the vine goes taut. Get the length wrong, and there isn't a second chance. This isn't performed for tourists. It's a ritual believed to bless the yam harvest and prove a young man's courage. Even building the tower can take weeks, an entire village working together, testing vines, reinforcing platforms, arguing over exact heights. It's been happening for generations, long before anyone outside these islands even knew existed. By the late 1970s, footage of Naghol had begun reaching Australia and New Zealand. The ritual later helped inspire modern commercial bungee jumping. New Zealander AJ Hackett would go on to help popularize the sport, opening the world's first commercial bungee operation from a bridge in New Zealand in 1988. Think about that. Every bungee jump since, every fair, every bridge, every crane at Carnival owes something to a hillside tower on this one island, and a ritual most of the people doing modern bungee jumps have never even heard of. Melanesian voyagers settled these islands roughly 3,000 years ago, part of the same Lapita culture that spread across much of the Pacific. Europeans didn't show up until 1606. A Portuguese explorer named Pedro Fernandes de Queiroz, sailing for Spain, landed here believing he'd found a fabled southern continent. He hadn't. The Spanish left a short-lived settlement and moved on. For over 150 years after that, almost nobody from Europe came back. Then, in 1774, Captain James Cook mapped the islands and named them the New Hebrides, a name that stuck for the next 2 centuries. Then everything changed. The 19th century brought a practice called blackbirding. Island men kidnapped or coerced into indentured labor on plantations in Australia and Fiji. Try wrapping your head around this. An entire generation of young men simply disappearing. That's what happened here. By some estimates, Vanuatu lost close to half of its adult male population to this practice over just a few decades. Some never came home. Missionaries arrived around the same time. European planters started carving out cotton and coconut plantations on land that, under local custom, was never actually theirs to take. In the Vanuatu understanding, land belonged to future generations, held in trust, not owned outright. That difference would end up changing everything a century later. By the late 1800s, Britain and France were both circling these islands. Each one worried the other would claim them first. Neither wanted a war over a chain of islands nobody back home could even locate on a map. So in 1906, they landed on a solution, one so strange. It's often described as one of history's strangest colonial experiments. Britain and France agreed to jointly govern the New Hebrides under something called the Anglo-French Condominium. On paper, it sounded efficient. In practice, it meant two of almost everything. 2 police forces, 2 currencies, 2 school systems, 2 health services, and, this is real, 2 separate prison systems, because neither government would let the other one guard its own citizens. Locals nicknamed it the Pandemonium. No kidding, and they weren't exaggerating. Both governments controlled their lives. Neither one represented them. Indigenous and Vanuatu weren't even granted citizenship of either colonial power. If you were a European settler, you got to choose which system you wanted to live under. If you were from here, you didn't get a choice at all. This arrangement lasted an almost unbelievable 74 years. 2 governments, refusing to fully hand over control to each other. It just stayed stuck like that. Then World War II arrived, and everything changed in a way nobody in either government saw coming. During World War II, the islands became a major Allied base. At their peak, more than 500,000 American troops passed through these islands during the war, an almost unimaginable number for a place with a tiny local population. And these weren't the distant, formal colonial administrators locals were used to. American GIS showed up with radios, canned food, jeeps, and a casual friendliness that looked nothing like European rule. When the war ended, the Americans left. They took most of that equipment with them, or just abandoned it. But this is where things get weird. What followed became one of the most well-documented cargo cults in the world. Followers believe this abundance of goods, the cargo, was actually meant for the Vanuatu all along, kept from them by outsiders, and that a figure known as John Frum, believed by followers to be an American serviceman, would one day return with it. Believers built mock airstrips and bamboo control towers, marched in imitation military drills, raised the American flag, all in the hope of summoning the cargo back. Colonial authorities were rattled enough that they jailed movement leaders and briefly outlawed even mentioning John Frum's name. It didn't stop the movement. By 1956, the same colonial government that had banned it formally recognized the John Frum movement as a religion. It's still practiced today on the island of Tanna, with an annual parade every February. The John Frum movement is now also a registered political party, and it's held seats in Vanuatu's actual parliament. And then it gets even stranger. Nobody even knows if John Frum was a real person. Vanuatu doesn't just have a dramatic history. Living here is like building your house on a ticking time bomb. On the island of Tanna, Mount Yeaser has been actively erupting for hundreds of years, and you can stand right at the rim and feel the ground shake beneath your feet every few minutes. The mountain reminds everyone who's in charge. The ocean has its own history too. A World War II American troopship, the SS President Coolidge, sits almost fully intact off Espiritu Santo, now one of the best wreck dives in the world. A country built on a volcanic hotspot, shaped by shipwrecks and war, consistently ranked among the most disaster-prone countries on Earth, and somehow one of the more resilient places you'll find anywhere in the Pacific. By the 1960s, a land ownership dispute dating back to the colonial planters had become the central political fight in the islands. By the early 1970s, a party called the Vanuatu Party, led by a former Anglican priest named Walter Linney, was pushing for full independence, not just from one colonial power, but from both at once. Against all odds, it actually worked. On July 30th, 1980, the Republic of Vanuatu was formally declared. The country chose a new name, commonly understood to mean something like, our land forever, a direct answer to a century of outsiders deciding who that land belonged to. Remember that language number from earlier? That's partly a legacy of the same colonial split. Vanuatu's 3 official languages today are English, French, and Bisama, a pidgin that let NI Vanuatu speaking dozens of mother tongues actually talk to each other. Underneath those 3, more than 100 indigenous languages are still spoken today. Vanuatu got fought over by 2 empires who couldn't agree on anything. Next week, we're heading to a much colder set of islands that 2 entire countries actually did go to war over. A British territory in the South Atlantic that Argentina still claims as its own to this day. Next week, the Falkland Islands. A ritual on one hillside became a global sport. 2 empires ran the same country at once for 74 years and called it government. A cargo cult built out of jeeps and canned food is still a political party today. Remember that jump from the tower? That wasn't even the strangest thing about this place. Most countries are known for one unbelievable story. Vanuatu somehow is 5, and every single one of them is true. Maybe that's exactly why you probably never heard of it. Until today. If you enjoy stories about the world's strangest places, forgotten history, and islands most people have never even heard of, hit subscribe. We got plenty more.